Yes, this was better than the original. But is that enough? Hey, what's up, Nerd fam? It's your boy Gashawn. I want to welcome you to Into the Nerd. Today we're talking about The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn, which is like a reboot / sequel of the original film, Suicide Squad, right? Whatever that really means, right? So, let's just get right into it. So, immediate pros of this, for the general audience. I'm speaking to people who do not know the comic at all. And I had to, just to kind of preface how I was going about thinking, is I had to cut my brain in half. I take my comic book brain out and, well, at some points, and then have my general audience brain in. As a general film, this is a better film than what we got originally. I would like to say there's a caveat, seeing as to how that film was also reshot and was not the original vision of David Ayer. That's important to note, seeing as how it went from being rated R to PG-13 with a complete narrative shift and tons of stuff cut out and changed. So you don't really know what we're comparing it against. And it's funny, because I see a lot of these same people who are like, release the Snyder Cut, we need that, to say, oh, well, the Ayer cut doesn't really matter. I mean, if one person's vision is important, then I'm guessing the other one should be as well. I just want to stay consistent with that. But either way, what came out in theaters was not very good. And this is better than, even on a general scale, when it comes to the storytelling, how well acted it was, even though a lot of the same actors are in this one. I don't think acting was really the problem. It was just really the story and everything. And it wasn't really good. It wasn't a good movie. We know that, the first one. So, what were the strong points in this movie? Visually, it was very good. I kept saying in my earlier reviews of the trailer that I felt like this was going to be entertaining. And it is an entertaining movie. You're gonna laugh. You're gonna like what you see. They have some pretty cool action set pieces. It stays true to the rated R nature of it. There's not a shortage of blood and gore. That's great. It stays true to the fact that these people are expendable. You like that about it. Absolutely. And even liked the inclusion of some very, I'll say out of this world, and no pun intended, but I guess, villains like STARRO showing up, because that's something so utterly ridiculous, but I'm glad, because that's a very comic book villain. I'm glad they have him there, and he's related to Checkmate, and some of these characters in here are also related to this group called Checkmate as well, which we'll get into later. But that also kind of tied into the cons in this film, but that's really more from my side. But for a general audience, I think people are going to enjoy this. Hell, I just enjoyed it in terms of just watching and laughing and stuff like that. But then there was a sad part that came over me, and it's the thing that I have with a lot of other superhero films, and it's that a lot of these characters are just not true to who they are. And that is for people like me, who actually know these characters, who have read these books. And I'll say specifically two that really got to me. Let's get into that. First was Bloodsport. Bloodsport is somebody who I've made another video about before, who I said immediately, just from how he looks, doesn't even look like the character, right? That was one of my first things. Like, you could at least make the costume harken back to what the costume is, which is, you could have made the helmet red and made him have the army fatigue thing. Didn't have to look exactly like it, but that might seem nitpicky. But the character just isn't who the character would be in the comic. So, think about this. In the movie, they made him pretty much Deadshot. He's got John with his daughter, except, he cares, they curse each other out, but then turns out he really cares about her, but hated her mother, and, he's damaged from his father, and he's an assassin. A lot of Deadshot. It's like there's a lot of Deadshot in him. Whereas in his actual story, he pretty much was supposed to go to the military, but his brother went there after him. As him, got his limbs blown off or something like that. He felt really guilty about it, and pretty much, I believe, to help his brother out with money or something like that, I think for treatments, he had to go to Lex, because Lex pretty much was like, hey man, we need somebody to go out here and take care of Superman, and gave him this teleporting device and these bullets and all that, and he became a Superman villain. Now they give a little throwaway line, oh yeah, he put Superman in an ICU with the kryptonite bullet. Okay, when? That's another thing. When did that happen? Can somebody tell me when that happened? Because Lex is the only one with kryptonite. But as we can see, Batman had to steal that from Lex, and in the same movie he did that, Superman died. So tell me where in this timeline that happened. They just threw that line out there to just kind of remind you of the original story, but that didn't really happen. Like, there was no space in for his timeline for something like that to have happened, right? But either way, it wasn't a daughter thing. It was his brother. And if you really wanted him to kind of look like this, you know, reluctant villain type of thing, you could have used that instead of his daughter coming, have his brother come in, and maybe say like, I was just doing this for him, and maybe I'm all caught up, and maybe Lex Luthor, you know, when I got caught doing whatever it is, a Superman or whatever, Lex Luthor, you know, denied knowing me, and now I'm in prison. And now you could, you know, now have him be like a person who's really not supposed to be there. Like, you know, his action led him there, but he's not a bad guy. You could have had that, and that would have harkened more back to what happened in the comic book storyline, but it didn't. They literally just made him a different version of Deadshot, which sucks. Peacekeeper as well. Peacekeeper, once again, he's crazy. He's not just immoral, like he's crazy. I mean, his dad was a Nazi, which you don't have to do Nazi because, you know, that's not timely because, you know, the year we're in. But you could have said his father was something immoral as well that corrupted him. And the fact that helmet he's wearing, he like hears dead people in it. Like he hears dead people talking to him. So that wasn't there at all either. And I get it. Like they still had the whole, you know, liberty, I'm willing to do things. They had one part of him, but that was it. I did like how John Cena still portrayed him in certain ways, right? It wasn't all bad. Like, I liked Idris Elba. I like these actors. The actors was never the problem. It's just that, I'll put it plainly. This was literally Guardians of the Galaxy with a Suicide Squad skin over it. Quite literally. And it's not that Suicide Squad wasn't entertaining, but it seems like, and a little bit lazy, because like, who was your Groot character? You had like the King Shark. You had to have like, you know, you even had like a different rodent and like Weasel and Rocket Raccoon. Like, it's literally like he just took his formula from that and applied it here. And DC knew that because they knew how successful that was, so they figured he'd make this ensemble film also successful with characters. Because what he do with Guardians of the Galaxy, he made these obscure characters more mainstream. So they figured we can do the same thing here. And obviously for general audiences, it's gonna work for most of them. Obviously not gonna make as much money because it's taking place during a pandemic. But either way, once again, not a bad movie to say, but when it comes to how it even fits in like the comic, because the comic storyline, and also how does this fit within the DCEU? Because this is all about to be rebooted at the Flash movie. So almost none of this even matters. None of it matters. And obviously all these people have to have these weird idiosyncrasies, like Bloodsport has to be scared of rats all of a sudden. Yeah. It did a lot of the same tropes that a lot of superhero films do and what makes them successful to a lot of general audience, and obviously they don't know about the other stuff. But overall, still, it just depends on who you are. If you're a person who doesn't really know much about the comic, this will not bother you. But if you do and you know so many things, it will bother you. It'll bother you a little bit, like a little bit, right? But not bad. Not gonna say it's a bad movie. It's not. It just left a little bit to be desired when it comes to portrayal of some of these characters. Like James Gunn put a lot of his mark on it. Like, this is mine. Once you know, this is mine. I think a lot of directors do stuff like that. But it was just very, very obvious. And like, honestly, if it took a different tone, less jokes, less stuff like that, it'd have been even closer to what happened with them in the comics. There's so many different teams and iterations when it comes to Suicide Squad. So, I mean, it really is kind of interchangeable when it comes to stuff like this. I mean, I would have loved to see Idris be, you know, maybe Bronze Tiger. That would have been cool, right? Because he was in a Suicide Squad, and he does martial arts and stuff like that now. I'm not sure why they didn't go with that. And what also bothers me about that, I'm going back to Bloodsport, is that he's an original black character. Why'd they do that? Like, why didn't they just get him right? Instead of going, oh, well, let's get Floyd, you know, Deadshot, and, you know, swap them. And I think it's, whatever. There's a whole other thing. I ain't gonna get too much to that. Let me know. Did you like Suicide Squad? Was this like one of your favorite, or the Suicide Squad? Was it like one of your favorite movies ever? What you like about it? Tell me what you didn't like. Did you go in there just with a blank slate, or were there some things that you didn't like about it in terms of comic book stuff? I left some things out. There are a lot of things that I can go on about, but Peacemaker, and Bloodsport were like my two biggest things, as well as what does this even mean to the rest of the DCU? It doesn't really mean much of anything, right? So let me know what you think. Into the Nerd.